Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 54 in the book of Genesis. We're going to do Genesis chapter 8, verse 1 today. And we're in the context where 2 Peter chapter 3 yesterday reminded us don't overlook the flood, but deliberately look to the flood. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today because there's something that the Lord wants us to remember about today, and that is don't forget His remembering. So we're going to look to the flood. We're going to give our attention to it. We're not going to deny it. So we're going to be careful about judgment. Don't deny judgment. We're going to be careful about the creation and be careful about the creator. We're going to not get sloppy on the rescue. We're going to see how it points to Jesus. And then specifically, we're not going to deny that the flood happened. That kind of all was yesterday. So let's move from yesterday's concept about the Lord shutting Noah in the ark and then what happens inside God's head. We're going to start in 7:16. And the Lord shut him in, Genesis 7:16. The flood continued 40 days on earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. And all flesh died that moved on the earth. Birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Wow. Verse 22, 7:22. Everything on dry land, in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. Verse 23, he blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man, animals, and creeping things, and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. And then here's the verse to remember today. This is chapter 8, verse 1. But God remembered Noah. All right, so the ark works. It floats. The flood continues. It prevails, and it prevails mightily. It goes higher than every mountain, and all flesh dies: animals, birds, swarming creatures, and most poignantly, all mankind. So imagine the moment you realize that Noah in the boat, realizing, and maybe he did this before when he was building the boat, but he realized that all his acquaintances out there were going to die. All the animals out there were going to die. And the only thing that was alive was with you. Every bird that's alive is with you. Every cow that's alive is with you. Every human that's alive is in the boat. And imagine, I was thinking too about the sound. So obviously it was made a big cacophony while it rained for 40 days, but then the rain stopped. And then it was quiet. So he's on the boat for another 300 days after those 40 days. And the only sound inside the boat, I think, was waves and wind, I suppose. All right, so let's get to the passage I want to today, which is God remembered Noah. That's from chapter 8, verse 1. God thought about Noah. He turned his attention to him. And when the Bible talks about remember, it means not just thinking about it, it means acting in accordance with remembering. So there's some action with the remembering. So I remember and I enact to save. So I remember and then I do is kind of what it means. I have a thought and then I have divine help along with it. So God is saying here, Noah, and it didn't just start with chapter 8, verse 1, but it's described well there, that I see you and I'm going to help. So this is a concept where God is in the remembering business. So in Genesis 19, he says, I remember Abraham, and I do so by saving his nephew Lot. Then in chapter 30, I remember Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. Then in Exodus chapter 2, I remember Israel, and I hear and see their groaning. It's the same thought that's going to come in chapter 9, where in verse 14 it says, when I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow, is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. So there in chapter 9, we're going to get to this, is God remembers with a rainbow. In fact, he says, When there is a rainbow, God is going to give us the sign that he is remembering. So when there is a rainbow, he is telling us that at that moment he is remembering. So today, don't get sloppy about uh, judgment and the flood and creation and the creator and the guy that's in charge, which is the Lord. Don't get sloppy about the flood. Don't get sloppy about Noah. God is in the judgment business, and God is in the rescue business. God is also in, as we learned today, in the remembering business, as it says in chapter 8, verse 1. And by that we mean thinking of and acting on the behalf of. So don't forget that God is remembering Noah, and by extension, all of us that he saves through that line. So God tells us what he is thinking at a certain moment of time, and he tells us what he is thinking as Noah is in the ark. He tells us that God remembered Noah and the animals. One small thought today. Are you an animal rememberer? I don't know if you know people that are very connected with animals, but God was too. He remembered not just Noah, um, which is my main focus here, but he also is remembering the animals. So are you an animal rememberer? That's great because God was too. All right, so the big point today is don't forget the remembering because God remembered Noah. Thanks for listening.